This is MJ. I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an analyzer. You can find all my work at mjmunoz.com. Henshin Inspection presents Rider Tears. This is part 5 of my coverage of the Kamen Rider manga by none other than the classic mangaka Shotaro Ishinomori. And I'm going to say right off the bat, I really liked this episode, this chapter, this section of the manga. This focuses on Hayato Ichimonji because of spoilers that I didn't want to talk about too much last time when I was reviewing part 4. Hayato Ichimonji, not Takeshi Hongo, takes the main stage for this section of the manga, and I'll get to that in a minute, because right now I want to talk about, I want to kind of get out of the way, talking about the peak drama and the peak art from this manga. So the peak drama, I chose this page where, again, spoilers, Ichimonji is fighting a man. I'll just put it this way. Ichimonji is fighting a man up on a cliff top where this woman, his childhood friend, is about to be thrown off as a part of this festival of sacrificing to the sea god so that the fishing village will do well. And it turns out that this man in a mask is none other than his father. And the sequential art here is really great. He cracks the guy. They've been fighting for a little while, him and other guys. He cracks him on the face in the mask with a, rider chop type thing. The mask splits apart. It breaks open. Ichimonji's dad has a huge schnoz. His nose bursts out of the mask, and then his father falls off of the cliff. I believe his father dies, although it's lives, although it's inconclusive, and he's very apologetic and very, sad and very upset that his father is falling down this cliff, which is great. But everything that had happened leading up to this, with the interactions with his parents and with the village, all give you this great sense of foreboding, and then we have this very dramatic scene unfold there, and the the art behind it is pretty good too. And then it's a small fishing village that Ichimonji is actually from, and we get to see that played out, because almost all the shocker kaijin or cyborgs featured in this section of the manga are actually aquatic. They're fish people. There's a crab man, there's a shrimp man, and there are also these crazy gigantic, they look to me gigantic, flying manta rays that have electric shocks very much amplified. And there's even shark bombs, bomb sharks later on, which is sad, because you get to see after they blow up, it's just like a shark corpse, and that's it. Which is really awful that sharks are using animals in that way. But yeah, so that was my peak drama. And then I had a really hard time actually figuring out what the peak art example was for you. And I want to get this out of the way and then blabber on for a few minutes and talk, not blabber on, but then for a few minutes just talk kind of fast and loose about the rest of what I thought of this edition of the manga. It's probably the case that the actual best artwork in this is some of the stuff where Ichimonji is not transformed into the rider yet, and he's fighting with Crabman, because Crabman is rendered really wonderfully. He has a great sense of motion, great sense of foreboding, and in their fights and in their interactions with each other, like I said, the sense of motion is really great. Like, the cinematography is fantastic, and you just feel like they are fighting, like they're going back and forth, like it's this dance of death that they're engaged in. But my favorite artwork actually is these cutaways that we see, because for whatever reason in this section of the manga, Ishinomori decides to bless us with these cutaways of the rider and the rider suit, and we get all these interesting details on it. So there's this great one of the mask, which is really beautifully rendered. I think it's like a close-up shot of his face, and it's a cutaway. And then there's a whole body shot, which actually, now I think of it, the Shin Kamen Rider poster with Hongo standing in front of the cyclone, and then it says stuff around him. It's like a grayish background. That's exactly what it's pulled from this section of the manga, except there's not the cutaways showing the details of his suit and his powers and stuff, and how the second skin of it powers him up, and like how apparently he can breathe for 2 hours in space or in vacuum with the I don't know, the stuff, the air stored in the lung or whatever. Like, it's just super cool, and it's got all this great information, all these great tidbits in there, and like, it looks cool. I mean, it's a full body shot, and it's not rendered as nicely as it could be. We see nicer versions elsewhere, but like, it's pretty good. It does the job. I would give it like as far as the rendering itself, I'd give it like a 85%, but all this cool stuff it shows within it is awesome, versus like the close-up headshot where we get the cutaway to the eye. I'd give that like a 99% as far as the quality of the art. So that was really cool. But yeah, I want to go ahead and talk about the actual story as a whole, because that is what I care about here, even if the visuals, you know, are awesome and do blow me away. This is a visual medium, so I figure I got to talk about that for a good chunk of the time. But for the rest of the time, I want to talk about the actual story that we got to see unfold in this section of the manga, and I'll also get into spoilers about what happened with Takeshi Hongo and how he, well, and yeah, what happened with him. Alright, so before I continue, I want to make sure I talk about Ichimonji, then Hongo, then some cool new stuff from the writer system that I didn't know about until this issue. And it's weird. I read this years ago, you know, however many years ago when it originally came out. I bought it on Comixology and I read the whole thing, and I really liked it. And then I don't remember a lot of the stuff that happens in this one, and I peeked at the next section. I don't remember a lot of that. So anyway, it's really interesting that Ichimonji goes to his hometown, his fishing village. I find it also interesting that Ishinomori is from a fishing village. Fishing village. I can't remember what it's called right now, but anyway, he is, and that's kind of a cool thing. But anyway, so Ichimonji goes back home. It's like a ghost town. There's a very interesting, like, oppressive, like, sad, empty, hollow atmosphere there. And then it turns out, like, you know, Shocker, you know, trigger warning or whatever. Shocker kills a dog! Like, a dog gets decapitated by Crabman, I believe. And, like, just all these people are living in terror, and his childhood friend, who I think he maybe been in love with as a kid or whatever, and his mom and dad, like, they hate him, and they're rejecting him, and they're telling him to go away, and it turns out that it's all part of this, they're using the town, the fishing village of Ichimonji, which I believe they're doing that on purpose to spite him, as a sample of a mind control project, that Shocker has in mind, because they want to subjugate all of humanity and turn them into cattle, right? That's the idea. So they utilize his town, and there's, like, I don't know, there's this really interesting thing that's going on with him where, like, he knows the town and he knows the people, but they're totally alien to him, and they're no longer who they used to be because of Shocker, and it kind of parallels him because he's no longer who he used to be because of Shocker, and you know, his interactions with Takeshi Hongo have turned him into a different person. Now he is the Kamen Rider, and they have a mission. He has a purpose to his life, and, like, he kind of has to let go. Like, he can't go back home based on what's happened to him. And, like, Hongo's family is dead. Tobei Tachibana is the only family he has left, and we get to see that, and we get to see the, you know, some of the staff that are working for him and stuff like that, and they, you know, seem to care about their boss or whatever, but it's not the same. And then Ichimonji has his opportunity to go home. It looks like he kills his dad, but we don't know. It's inconclusive, and for sure, like, his mom and his dad hate him because of what Shocker's done and because of how they're controlling him, and so does his childhood friend. And she tries to come. She pulls out a whatever little dagger. What is it? Anyway, I don't know the Japanese name. It's okay. It's a short sword dagger type thing. Tonto, maybe? Anyway, to try to kill him after they were trying to kill her, throwing her off the cliff to appease the sea god because she wouldn't listen to them, and she was, like, not being fully mind controlled. And it's just really interesting, all that personal dynamic, and you know, it adds an element of tragedy to Ichimonji. We don't know much about him, but then seeing all this stuff, it really, you know, makes things kind of interesting and crazy for him. Hongo, on the other hand, is a brain in a jar now, and he's communicating with Ichimonji, and he can feel what Ichimonji feels, he can see what he sees, and he has the sense of everything it is. He's like, it's like they're the 2-in-1 Kamen Rider, the original 2-in-1 Kamen Rider, believe it or not, which is super interesting. But you know, similar to the dynamic with, like, Shotaro and Philip from Kamen Rider Double, if you don't know, that's who I'm referring to when I say the 2-in-1 Kamen Rider. Hongo has a better head on his shoulders, even though ironically he's a brain in a jar now, and he cautions Ichimonji to not think he's invincible, to think that to slow down and be careful, because he needs to protect his life and make sure that he survives so that they can continue the fight against Shocker. And Ichimonji's kind of reckless, and there's this thing Ichimonji keeps saying, like, oh, it's easy for you to say, I'm the one who actually has to do this, you're just, you know, communicating with me, you're connected with me in this different way, and, you know, you're not the one at risk here, you're already, you know, risked or whatever, like, you're part of the story of being the one in danger is done, and now I'm the one bearing the brunt of that. And it's super interesting because it kind of, I don't know, it was funny. I was reading it out loud to my kids, and they give like almost the God Shocker, they call him, like the way his text is, where it's like very square bubbles and very square, different kind of bold text, as opposed to like the more handwritten looking type text of the other characters. So I gave Hongo like this kind of cold, emotional, more distant voice when I was voicing him in that, and that's kind of how I read it visually. And that's interesting because maybe there is a little bit of that robotic, mechanical, inhuman aspect to him now that he's just the brain in the jar. And it definitely, you get a different vibe between the two of them. Like they do have contrasting personalities, and you feel that. I just don't know if, you know, kind of cold, mechanical, detached is the right way to characterize Hongo in this, because he does care, and he wants Ichimonji to be safe, and he wants to fight Shocker for all the right reasons, all the right things. It's just, I don't know, there's just something in the way it was presented to me. It just felt a little colder, a little different, a little distant, and that's interesting because Hongo was struggling with not being fully human, and now he's barely human. He's barely alive. Like, where is his soul? Where is his heart? He just doesn't have a heart or soul. He just has a brain, and that's kind of weird. But I still think technically the soul could be contained within the flesh or whatever, even if it's a modicum of it, like the brain. Gosh, I don't know. It's really interesting. I really like this though. Like, this is a lot of fun. I like the dynamism in the fights. The action's very smooth. We see crazy stuff like Ichimonji. I'm calling this the subtitle of this review is Kamen Swimmer, because he's swimming. Kamen Rider swimming through the water, and apparently he can swim in there for like up to 2 hours because he's got air somehow in his lung system or whatever. You got to look at the cutouts. I believe I'm posting it on the show notes at mjmunoz.com for you to see that. But like, it's super cool. He's swimming, and he's like using like reverse turbo thruster or whatever in order to like zoom through the water. And Hongo's like, "Don't do it too much. You're gonna use up all your energy. That's not good." And it's super cool. All the stuff that Ishinomori's doing. Like, I never expected to see Kamen Rider swimming around in the ocean and like doing it to such great effect. And I think that's really neat. And it's a lot of fun. And yeah, so it's interesting because there's some depth here. There's some tragedy, but then there's also just like cool monster fighting action. And I love all that stuff. And I love the particular blend of it that Ishinomori serves to us, and I want more, and we're getting more. I'm very happy about there being one more big section of this, and it's really big, so I might take a little bit of extra time to get it done. Unfortunately, I gotta go. Until next time, folks, take care. This is MJ signing out. I hope you enjoyed that. Go to mjmunoz.com to leave any questions, comments, or other feedback you might have. There you can find all of my analysis, art, and fiction. I cover books, tokusatsu, comic books, anime, and more. Look around. You're sure to find something else that you'll enjoy as well. This has been a Story Over Everything production.